Hey, welcome to the Furious Five podcast. This is Robert Jackson, and today we're going to be chatting with Kaiden, I guess, kind of the main character of the story. This is Joseph DuVall. Thank you for joining me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Robert. It's really a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, anytime. I figured it's kind of been a minute or two since I've done like specifically a project type of, episodes. So why not just, go right to the lead of the story, like I said. So for those that might have missed the video, like I did like a casting video announcement like a few months ago, and Joe here is going to be voicing Kaden for the project, and I'm really excited to have you on. And I'm going to start probably doing these like occasionally because I still got a lot of stuff that is in my backlog. So just a quick little heads up for those that are tuning in. But anyways, yeah, just share a little bit about how your 2025 has been. Because I know you've been working on quite a few stuff, like so many different voiceover acting type of mumbo jumbo. So yeah, let's talk about your career as it is in 2025.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Well, I mean, 2025 has been a very interesting year for me. Very beginning of the year was very busy doing a lot of different projects. This was a big year for me in dubbing. I've done, it wasn't exactly on my radar coming into 2025, but I was very fortunate to have a lot of great opportunities to work with some amazing people on dubbing projects. You know, both live action and anime dubbing projects, which has been a ton of fun to do. Those projects were really great. Working on some smaller items here and there that have that are not yet out that I'm excited to for them to kind of hit the public at some point in the hopefully near future. But yeah, it was a big start to 2025. A lot of time kind of in between, especially this summer, has been devoted to a renewed push into my own education as a voice actor. I've been doing this for probably about almost 3 years now, and it's been a very been investing a lot right now into building up my acting skills for not just commercial but animation work, especially really trying to push into uh, conveying characters and acting to 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 bring out the real stories behind some of these characters and to inject life and some authenticity into every character that I bring. So yeah,
Absolutely. And yeah, because I think that's pretty much one of the big things about, doing voice acting is like bringing a lot of yourself into a lot of these characters.
oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, it's a little piece of every actor is in every character, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And I know that kind of extends, it's the case when it comes to, Furious 5 or just any of the, character work that you've kind of been doing. So what would you say have been some of your favorite ones that you can honestly look back to and say, yeah, I think I actually kind of dig this, that you've done for like the last few years or so, this year, I mean, including.
Um, yeah, I mean, I really like diving into Caden. I think his story is very fascinating, and his 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 character is very. I feel like I see myself a little bit in some of Caden. Probably a little bit different. I probably would have had some different approaches or different thoughts about what was going on in Caden's about what was happening in Caden's world, but there was something that really like kind of hit me. It's just like, yeah, I think I could see myself really having a lot of the same feelings and understanding and having that empathy with Caden. So I think he was really great to kind of resonate with. Other characters, I've done some really great. Um, I've sent a lot of little fun characters here and there. I mean, I really love playing the characters that are goofy in general, but also very real and down to earth because that's almost my style. Like I like to be like silly as almost like a defense mechanism to kind of just like, well, here we are. It's everything's okay. But I think there's a grounded, real, like, authenticity to that. Like, when you're thrust into very interesting circumstances, that you still want to have that connection to some sort of reality. So, and oftentimes it comes out as just being silly or sarcastic. So those are always fun to play.
Yeah. I also really love how when I was reading the Furious Five comics, I really liked how it kind of has this it kind of sort of has this Marvel or DC type of, let me see. What's a good example? Like, it's kind of like when you watch something like The Incredibles, where you have like, this sort of satire, but then also is being its own story, where it kind of has a little bit of that cartooniness in there, but it's still, because you have these five kids or students that are, you know, that gain powers, and they're thrust into these really dangerous kind of situations. So, yeah, there's the sense of realism there, but it's also like, it's not afraid to be, goofy and, kind of like have this literally comic edge to it. See what I did there? But yeah, it's really nice to see just a lot of the love and so much care that is being put into it. Like I know that on behalf of Rat Boy, Class Act Jack, and the guys that made it. I think it's a real honor to just getting to be dubbing this, and also getting to learn more about the characters as we go along with the story. And just really learn who these characters are. Like the more that you read the pages, the issues, episodes, and it's still ongoing. So chances are, by the time the new one is probably going to be coming out, whenever like I, from what I've last read, like I know five just came out and they're supposed to be doing like a Halloween thing, so we might be caught up when it comes to like I don't want to say for sure, but I think by the time after the Halloween issue comes out, we should be like caught up with the manga. Like I know a lot of people be joking about,
Yeah.
oh, I need to catch up with the manga. Well, we're gonna be catching up with the story by the time that comes out, Lord willing.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
But
it's
yeah, I'm
really
so glad
great.
that yeah, so glad that you shared about Kaiden. Like that's really, really nice. Yeah. But you go. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, no, I was just gonna say, I think it's a, especially to start off the story, it's a great, uh, I think there's a great hook at the very beginning, because you sort of get a brief glimpse at each of the characters in their natural environment and how they naturally behave, and then sort of when their whole world changes, they don't completely change, right? Like they're still, you know it, it's easy to, I think, to sometimes get succumbed into that, like, oh, okay, now they're superpower, they have superpowers, and you got to change your whole personality has to change because now you're a superhero. But especially in their position, it's they've gotta cope with that, right? All of a sudden everything just suddenly changes, and they now have to, you see them now have to really kind of come to terms with that. And I think that's a great place to sort of start down that path of storytelling. I think it leaves a lot of really interesting questions for the reader to follow up on, and pay attention to as the story goes on. Keep them interested.
Exactly. So for you, what was something, because I know you mentioned like specifically with Caden's character that kind of drew you in, but what was something about the story that also seemed to like, captivate you in a way?
I mean, like, I've always had a big, like, soft spot for comics, comic book heroes, and sort of that, uh you know while I've not been like super like invested in a lot of like deep, following comic books deeply, I do have a lot of fond memories of reading, plenty of, like, I was a big X-Men guy, back in the day. That was my jam, in the 90s and everything like that. Was like, especially with the cartoons on TV and everything. So it just felt like, with the Furious Fives, it just felt like immediately it's just like, okay, this world feels like it's got some sort of connection to reality, which I like in superhero stories, even though things can go, you know off into the realm, of superpowers and big baddies and complicated plots and everything, there's always that, like, the idea of this being a world that things happen in. It didn't feel like it had a story that was just like, well, this happens and then they do this, or this happens and then this happens and then they do this. It feels like a story that has some persistence to it, right? There's, this happens, which then means this happens, or this happened, so then because of that, this next thing happens. And it really kind of it pulled me in right away to that effect, where it was like, okay, now I really kind of want to see what happens as a result of what's going on right now. And it kind of keeps me coming back.
Yeah, because that's what a story should really do. It's like it hooks you, like you mentioned the hook, and then it takes a lot of different turns and directions, and you kind of just ask yourself, "Oh, I wonder what's gonna happen next." You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So I think outside of Furious 5, because you've also done like, and seriously, just even looking at your website and the amount of stuff that you've done is pretty insane. So I guess I will also say, what would you say is something that is the most, that gives you like a lot of just, that you have the most fun with, and it's also just the most creatively fulfilling to you?
Let's see. So I worked with I still keep in touch with them. I worked with a production called Spiked Eggs Productions. They also do a podcast. They have these they do, it's not a like a serialized podcast in the sense that there's like an ongoing, progressive storyline. They're all kind of one-off episodes, and they call them sort of dark fairy tale tales, where they have like a spin on one thing. And I think one of the things I have up on my website was a clip of me from one of the episodes that was a twist on the Princess and the Pea, where I play a very sarcastic and biting character that's sort of not a main character, but was just very clearly like just doesn't want to be there, and is very clearly like thinks they're above everybody else, and they're just kind of resigned to this role because of their station, whatever. And that was one of the episodes I did with them, which was, it's this big, like, I've got this faux British accent, very over the top and proper, working with royalty. And then I did another episode with them where I was a patron in a bar in like the late 1970s, right? In Brooklyn. And so it was like this really cool jump, like being able to kind of hop into sort of like vastly different worlds and play around in so many different sandboxes that are like that. It's just a lot of fun. I love that kind of work, being able to just like, all right, here's your next challenge, right? Here's what kind of environment you need to inhabit. It's a really cool thing. That's one of the things I love about doing character acting, is you really get to play in some really cool and fun sandboxes.
Yeah. I seem to notice too, it's like with Kaiden, and also just working with I'm so sorry. You mentioned it was a different client video game that you just talked about, where you kind
Oh,
of played no,
the one I was just talking about.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a pod. It was a podcast.
Yeah, podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was for them. So between this and the podcast, I seem to notice you kind of play these characters that are kind of just so just against, or just kind of out of it, just so like just reluctant type of roles that just don't want anything to do with whatever business that they got dragged into.
Yeah. Sometimes I have played some other ones that are a little bit more like assertive and active.
Sort of. Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I was getting at.
where you're
Yeah.
like, where they're much more gung ho about it, or like I think there was one I played, and another one I played was one of my earlier roles. I didn't do this year. It was a previous year where I play more of like a, not like kind of like a hitman, but like almost kind of like I don't know, kind of like a Nathan Fillion type personality. Like he's very devil may care, just like but he's also done some very bad things, and he's very kind of assertive in his desire, but also very not comes off as very not serious. It's yeah. I mean, I'm sure I have a type. Let me say that. I'm gonna end up having a type of character, like a lot of actors tend to do, but they're always fun. It's I like comedy but not in a way that like where you're kind of in sort of in this situation where you're just kind of like it's unbelievable, right? It's just,
Yeah.
you're playing the straight you're playing the straight role in a very unbelievable circumstance. Like like a good example being like if you're familiar with like the Monkey Island games, right? Like you're playing a Guybrush Threepwood, completely straight, plays it right down the middle, and the entire world around him is completely ridiculous, and he's oblivious to it, and he's just like, well, okay, like I guess this is just what I do. I guess I just have to be a pirate now. So like, those are just fun to me. I don't know. It's just that kind of like dry ridiculousness that you can play off. It can be pretty funny.
Yeah. And it's also really fun how you get to jump from doing a comic dub that pretty much is an ongoing series, and then, well, and not just that, but it's kind of like a webtoon, like it's an original type of story, like
Yeah.
it's not based on any IP.
Mhm.
I mean, except, the creators just had their own thing, then I we're just kind of bringing it to life with voices. So it's like, hey, why not? And so you get to jump from
Yeah.
this and then doing a podcast, with these guys and just
Hmm.
really coming up with all of these fun characters. And you also mentioned being a New Yorker bar, like,
Yeah.
being a vendor. So I think it kind of jumps to my next question, which is because you brought up authenticity and seeing as how you're New Jersey, New York, you're an NY based actor yourself.
Mhm.
How, so what is something that you tend to, because since you're in New York, like,
Mhm.
is there anybody in particular or just performances you kind of feel like, oh, you know what, that seems pretty nice. I'll probably pull something from this and then just add my Joseph spin on it, so to speak.
It's interesting, actually. It's an interesting question. I think there's you know, I think everybody has them. I have honestly a lot of it's funny, a lot of my like inspiration and pulls from New York honestly don't come from a lot of like famous actors or any famous performances because I knew a bunch of these guys growing up around here. Like, I had a lot of people that around me, people like, like you'd consider like stereotypical New Jersey from, the Jersey Shore archetype, like, knowing people who like were like that and knowing people who like, people like working in like Bergen County construction, right? The people who are like go or, working there and they're like, the filthy mouths of sailors just like, hey, what do you got, like, what's your problem, what are you trying to do here? I knew those people like I it's like I just know a bunch of people who sound like a lot of that stereotypical like Jersey, even Brooklyn accent. So it's just a lot of times I just pull from like, oh, I remember this person, so let me try to tap into like as if I was talking to that person or if I was trying to like imitate that person. So it's yeah, it's so that's a lot of it is just yeah, personal like memories of and recollections of people that I can kind of draw some sort of reference to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what would you say is something that also helps you, like, because I know that voiceover is kind of like, you do this and then you're also a dad. So,
Mhm.
what kind of helps you just, balance it all out? Yeah, we're talking about the balance. I know.
Yeah, work
Just
life
being a parent and
balance.
also just being doing voiceover full time, both full time, rather.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and claim I've got some sort of like secret like oh I've cracked the code into
Yeah.
like exactly what to do, because I think it is like a balance, like you're constantly having to readjust yourself to maintain it, right? So it's honestly a lot of it is just flexibility and realizing and sort of a lot of kind of letting go a lot of the anxieties that are typical with voice actors, especially starting out, right? Is you get a lot of that FOMO of like, hey, I really need to audition for this. I really think I can do it. And that you really kind of go all in on certain auditions and you get really attached to those or feel like you're missing out on opportunities. And when you've got other responsibilities, sometimes those have to come first. So a lot of it was trying to like almost train myself into sort of letting that go and saying like, if I can get it, I can get it. If I can get to it, I can get to it. If I can perform for it, I can perform for it. But if I can't, then it's not the one, right? That's not the thing, right? That's gonna that I'm gonna miss. I'm missing. I'm not missing an opportunity. I'm not missing a door that was opened for me, right? That wasn't my door to go through. There's gonna be another door, right? So I think a lot of it just comes down to this having that attitude of like, you're gonna do what you can, and you can't do what you can't. So sometimes I've kids come down and they ruin a take. That stinks, but like that wasn't the take. I guess I'm gonna have to do another one, right? Like, so it's a lot of it is just kind of going with the flow, rolling with it, and doing what you can when you can. I'm in a very fortunate, you know, point in my life where I'm working remote. You know, I'm looking at you at my studio computer. I can look over here and I can look at my work computer, right? I have my booth right here that everything's close by, so it's easy for me to bounce back and forth, lowering that kind of friction to get in and out of doing things if I need to do an audition like right away. So yeah, being flexible and lowering boundaries into doing some of this work so that you can just kind of quickly get in and get out and get back to what you need to do has probably been the biggest key in order to at least balance it. But who knows? That may change. Something may come up where I may have to change it all over again. You never know.
For sure. And I was also gonna ask, like, what is something that you probably may have answered this already, but what would you say is something that you've really grown to love or just really hold so near and dear to your heart about voiceover after doing it for so many years?
I think, I mean, there's a lot. Um, there's definitely a lot. I came, coming into voiceover, I don't think I had a full appreciation of just how much of it there is out there and how many different areas of voiceover you can really kind of specialize in and be exposed to. Audio drama is always one that I talk about. The entire like that as a genre of voiceover that I wouldn't have known what you were talking about if you had told it to me like when I first started. And it's a medium that I've kind of grown to really to love because it's very much like just theater. It's you really get some wild opportunities in that medium to kind of really play and dig into a role, much like you would in like a feature film or even a video game. Sometimes even deeper. Because of the format, right? Um, got a real deep appreciation for that, and also the community. I know a lot of people like to say the community, but it is true. Like I've found a lot of amazing people help support me, and I help support them when I can. Uh, a lot of us are just trying to find our way in this business, and there's no one right way to do it. But with a good group of people to be around and support you when you need it, it's been fantastic, and I've met some amazing people that I'm fortunate to call friends. So, yeah.
Yeah. And besides family and voiceover, what would you say is kind of like the number one thing that's been really keeping you going just when it comes to, just keeping those creative muscles just at work per se?
You know, it's it's hard to say, and I think it changes over time for sure. But right now, I would say what kind of keeps me going is, in my pursuit this year, I mentioned about kind of really diving into some of the more acting, character acting specifics. I've I've over time I've kind of like almost awakened memories from like many many years ago. I was just like, oh yeah, that's something a voice actor would do. Like things I used to do, like back in the day, like recording my own voiceovers to certain things, or really being into certain voiceovers, but never really like clicking and making a connection that I could do this as a job. And then so discovering all of this stuff that I used to have in me, to rediscovering almost that childlike desire for play and for imagination and pretend, right? And I think what kind of keeps me going is the kind of chasing that feeling of like when you're really in a character and when you're really present in a moment in a scene, there's just this like this indescribable kind of feeling, almost almost like I don't know, it's probably cliche to call it like a high, but like you get this feeling of like you just this like feeling, this good feeling of just like you really just had that connection and you were able to sort of become the character, and that feeling you get when you feel like you've connected. And it doesn't matter if that was an audition that you're never going to book, or you're playing a role, or even playing Kaiden. Wherever that feeling comes from, it makes it all the worthwhile, regardless of anyone's external validation. If I felt validated by it, there's sort of no greater feeling in the world to me. Like, and that's right now what's keeping me going. Sort of chasing that feeling. I want to keep going there to tell stories through characters, and yeah, so just chasing it.
Yeah, you probably mentioned Devil May Cry earlier. So what would you say has been some of the top media that you've really were influenced by, and it kind of carries with
Yeah.
you, when it comes to performances or just in your life, period.
Very video game focused. Like I loved, like video games kind of are almost like the genesis of a lot of that. Um, the
I'm
idea, I
thinking
think
about
one,
Sega Genesis.
well, it's funny because I would say one of my earliest memories that stuck out to me when, and I'm going to date myself doing this, was Sega CD, right? So Sega CD comes out, all of a sudden now you can get like CD quality audio into games. And of course, what comes with that sometimes is a lot of those RPGs. Lunar, the Silver Star story, uh, the first voice acting I ever heard in a video game just blew my mind, right? That was probably one of the first areas I ever heard voice acting, was just like, huh, okay, this is cool. And of course, it wasn't great voice acting. We have much different standards back then, but I've always like followed like voice acting through video games, especially because of just of how interesting the medium is, and the technology supported behind it. How they can all sync it up, and just the whole production of it has always been fascinated me. Some modern examples. I mean, a lot of the. I mean, you can almost point to any games out there that have some really great performances. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33 is probably top tier. A lot of the Final Fantasy games, you know, really kind of hearing it from there there's just so much to kind of draw from there, from the video games. Beyond that, though, I would say I get a lot of enjoyment watching improv comedy as well. Uh, I love breaking down, like, and watching other people do improv, people who are very good at improv, like things like Dropout, Smosh, a lot of that, like watching them work improv and being able to kind of cue off of each other and stuff kind of gives me some ideas of like, oh, okay, like, from a very technical angle of like how to riff and yes and on everything. And I've taken a couple improv classes, which have been a ton of fun. So there's that serious side, and then of course the improv and like comedy side to kind of keep yourself fresh and sort of part of a scene. And even if you break down, you can improv your way out of it. So
It's a pretty good way of putting it. Yeah.
there was I had a teacher of mine who was like, you know, if you're gonna be in like when you're in character, if you screw up in like because a lot of times like, and I've done it a zillion times too. When you screw up doing a read, you kind of like stop yourself. You're like, oh, no, okay, sorry about that. Let me do that again. But I had a coach tell me recently, it kind of really blew my mind and changed the way I looked at it from then on. Was like, no, you screw up and you're in character, recover in character, because then I believe that you're just the character who just stumbled over their words, right? Like, what's more authentic than a character making a mistake? So it kind of changed how I looked at a lot of those things and realized just how important things like improvisation are, just as a character actor, you know, because your characters are going to make mistakes, you know, like they're going to, you know, like, you know, imagine like Kaiden getting mad like at somebody and being so infuriated that he's just stumbling over his words. How do you, you know, like, you got to train yourself to sort of like, instead of realizing that you made a mistake, well, if Kaiden made a mistake, how would they recover? What would they say? How would they act in that way? And you can kind of get to some really interesting places with characters when you start realizing that that's the kind of dimension you can put onto characters.
Absolutely. And trust me, there's going to be more moments like that. So you better,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so I definitely do want to close this out with like any last bit of advice, your socials, website, just feel free to plug any other projects that you've got cooking up that we might check out. And yeah,
All
just
right.
any closing stuff that you want to, wrap us up with. Take it away.
Let me think. Yeah. I mean, you can all find me at josephduval.com. It kind of links out to pretty much everywhere I am on socials and various sites. That's probably I try to keep that as my central hub because I know it can be sometimes just there's just so much information to get out, but you can get to all of my socials from there, my email address and see some of my work. Um, as for plugging something that's coming out, I'm trying to think. Recently, I was fortunate enough to be involved in the project for the Prime Rose anime English dub as a supporting character there, and that was such an amazing project to be part of, and had a lot of fun. And so I definitely recommend you take a look for that. It was yeah, I think it was done by Skyset Entertainment, and I think they're currently still selling that Blu-ray now, and I think it's going to be picked up. I think there was an announcement at I think Anime NYC about they're going to be redistributing a newer version too. That's going to be yeah they're going to be. I think it's just going to be a newer packaged version, but it's also going to have us on there as the English dub cast, which is a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend checking that out.
All right, nice. And any last closing thoughts that you want to say?
Um, I think I think I don't know. Now it's head empty. Now I'm kind of coming up blank. Like, but I really want to thank you for having me on, and I'm really having fun with the project. I'm very much looking forward to continuing the story and seeing everybody's reaction to it when it's finally out as well.
Absolutely. For the outro, you could just say your name, list of projects you've done, and this is the Furious Five podcast with Robert Jackson, if you're up for it.
Sure. Okay. I'm Joseph DuVall. I am a voice actor. You can hear me in projects such as a 10,000 time slip of 10,000 years Prime Rose, out on Blu-ray now. You can get me at josephduval.com. And this is the Furious Five. This is the Furious Five podcast with Robert Jackson.
Excellent. And does Kaden want to say something to close us out?
Ah, oh, just oh my God, hold on. Oh my God, I have like the formation of like of kind of what I want to say, but it's not like it's kind of I wanted to do like a riff on the punch myself in the face thing.
Yeah.
Um, fine, go listen to the podcast. While you do that, I'm gonna go. Oh shoot. Fine, go ahead and listen to the podcast. While you do that, I'm gonna go home and punch myself in the face until this is all over.
Brilliant. And with that, thank you so much for watching, y'all, and stick around next time. And until then, have a good day, God bless, and much love to y'all. I just hit my mic. But anyways, much love to y'all. Peace.